She thought she was buying cracked pavement and faded glory, just enough land to build a quiet life away from the noise. But when Marley Reyes stepped into the shuttered storage hangars of the abandoned racetrack, the air changed. There, under dust and forgotten history, sat a fleet of championship cars, each one a masterpiece of speed and story, and one of them had a letter taped to the windshield, addressed to her by name. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, tell us where in the world you're watching from. And if you love stories about second chances, hidden treasures, and legacies waiting to be uncovered, hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode takes this even further. The auction was quiet, except for the hum of old ceiling fans and the scratch of pens on folded catalogs. Marley Reyes sat in the back, arms crossed, boots scuffed, her number card resting on her lap. She hadn't planned to bid. Not really. She'd only come out of curiosity to see what would happen to Glenridge Raceway, the once thriving circuit that had roared with V12s and crowd cheers decades ago. But now, it was just a crumbling shell, a place locals whispered about with more nostalgia than hope. The land had been sitting dead for years, track cracked, stands rusting, and garages sealed shut behind steel roll-down doors. No one wanted it. Developers passed. Investors laughed. Even the city tried to offload it 3 times. But as the auctioneer cleared his throat and called out the parcel number, something in Marley tightened. Her father had taken her there once. Just once. She was 9. They'd sat in the grass near Turn 4, eating gas station sandwiches while cars blurred past so fast they left heat behind. She hadn't remembered much, just the noise, the way her father's face looked younger that day, like the track had taken 10 years off his eyes. Now, as the auctioneer's gavel hovered in the air, Marley stood up. Lot 112, the man barked. Abandoned racetrack, full parcel, starting bid, 35,000. Silence. Then someone in the corner chuckled. It's just weeds and oil stains, a voice muttered. Marley raised her hand. The auctioneer blinked. Bid of 35,000 from number 42. Do I hear 36? Nothing. He waited, called once more, then let the gavel fall. Sold. Just like that. Marley Reyes owned a broken-down racetrack. She didn't even remember walking to the front to sign the paperwork. Her hands were shaking, not from nerves, but something else. Possibility, maybe. Or madness. The clerk handed her a set of heavy keys, some labeled, some not. One was a master for the garage doors, long rusted and cold in her palm. Another looked old enough to predate the place. She drove back out to the track at dusk, the sky purple behind the tree line, and pulled her truck up to the main gate. The padlock clanked open, easier than expected. She stepped through. Everything was still. The grandstands leaned with age. The track was littered with broken branches and wind-blown trash. But the garages, 20 doors in a row, stood untouched. Their locks were sealed. No graffiti. No signs of intrusion. Just silence. She walked to the center door, the one that sat perfectly aligned with the start-finish line, and fit one of the larger keys into the lock. It turned, with a heavy click. The garage door groaned as it rolled up, metal scraping metal, dust swirled in the golden light. Marley stepped inside, and stopped, her breath caught in her throat. There, under layers of grime and years of silence, sat rows of race cars. Dozens. And one of them had an envelope taped to the windshield, with her name on it. The envelope looked out of place, too clean for a room swallowed by time. Marley stepped forward slowly, her boots echoing faintly on the concrete. The air smelled of dust and brake fluid, a scent she knew too well, comforting and forgotten all at once. She reached for the note with a kind of reverence, like it might vanish if touched too quickly. The name written across it was unmistakable. Marley Reyes, scrawled in bold, careful handwriting. Not printed, not typed. Written by someone who knew her name and expected her to find this. She peeled the tape away, her fingers trembling just slightly, and opened the envelope. Inside, was a single sheet of paper, folded 3 times. She unfolded it. If you're reading this, you've just opened the door that was never supposed to stay shut. Good. The world forgot these cars. Let's see if you can help them remember. Start with the one in the middle. Blue #9. The others will make sense after. There's a map under the driver's seat. Use it wisely. R. No last name. No explanation. Just that cryptic signature. R. Marley glanced back at the car in the center. A soft blue paint job, dull under dust, but unmistakable. Circular racing decals on the doors. The number 9 in white, inside a black ring. Sleek, low body. She circled it slowly, taking it in. Every inch of the car whispered of something handcrafted. This wasn't a kit. This wasn't just a collector's fantasy. It was art, frozen in time. The windshield was thick with grime. She wiped a corner clear with her sleeve and peered inside. The seat was cracked leather. The dash still held old analog gauges. A racing harness lay across the passenger seat like someone had just stepped out mid-race and never returned. She opened the driver's side door. It creaked, but gave. She crouched, hand slipping beneath the seat. Her fingers brushed paper. She pulled out a faded folder wrapped in plastic, edges frayed, but still intact. Inside was a map of the racetrack, not as it was now, but as it had been. Labeled corners, pit locations, timing booths. Even a red X, drawn over one of the garages at the far end. Something deeper stirred in her gut. She backed out of the car and looked around again. Rows of them, Ferraris, Porsches, open-wheel legends, endurance beasts, some with sponsor decals, others stripped clean. Every one of them meant something. Every one of them had been loved, raced, broken in, and brought back. Now they sat like ghosts, waiting for a voice to call them back to life. She counted 28 vehicles in total. The garage doors beside her were still locked, still sealed. But if this one was hiding a private collection worth more than anything she'd ever owned, what were the others keeping quiet? Marley looked back down at the letter in her hand. R, whoever they were, knew she'd come, knew she'd be the one to open this door, and they left her instructions start with the blue one. So she did. The car felt alive the moment her hand touched the wheel. Cold, yes, but not dead. Marley slid into the driver's seat, her movements slow, like she was stepping into someone else's story. The leather was worn but intact. The roll cage had faint scuffs, the kind you get from elbows slamming against it in tight turns. She ran her fingers across the dashboard. The ignition switch was still in place, surrounded by toggles labeled in faded marker. Fuel, fan, fire. Real race setup. No extras, no luxuries. Just muscle and intention. She leaned forward and inhaled the scent of old fuel, leather, sweat, and time. This car had been driven hard. And recently, by the smell of it, that didn't make sense. The track had been closed for nearly a decade. Then again, none of this made sense. She reached under the dash, flipping open the glove box. Inside was a key not labeled, just sitting alone next to a thin envelope. She opened it. Engine is clean. Battery's not. Use the red pack in garage bay 18. She'll start. But don't push her until you know what's under the rear panel. And Marley, be careful who you tell. Some people don't want her found. R. Her name again. How the hell did they know she'd be the one to open this door? She pocketed the key, stepped out of the car, and scanned the other bay numbers. Bay 18 was 3 doors down. She jogged over, used the same master key from earlier, and pulled it open. Dust billowed out. Inside was more storage tools, parts, crates, stacked against the walls. In the far corner, under a tarp, was a rolling cart with a red lithium jump pack, fully charged and clean, as if it had been set out yesterday. Marley didn't hesitate. She brought it back, hooked it up, and double-checked the fuel switch. Then, settling into the seat again, she turned the key. The engine didn't sputter. It growled, a low, throaty rumble that sent vibrations through the frame. She could feel it in her chest, like the car was waking up from a long, bitter sleep. The tack twitched. Oil pressure climbed. Lights flicked across the dash. She didn't touch the throttle. Just let the engine idle, listening to it talk. Whoever built this or preserved it hadn't just loved it. They'd protected it, preserved every inch. She reached down and popped the rear panel, then walked to the back to see what the letter had warned her about. The cover came off with a click. And there it was, the engine bay, immaculate. But not stock, not even close. Twin turbos sat tucked beside a custom manifold, and on the firewall, etched into the metal, was a series of initials. Mr. Plus R equals 214. Her breath caught. She knew those initials. AR was her uncle Alex Reyes, a man the racing world buried under silence. And suddenly, everything snapped into place. This wasn't just a prototype. This was personal. She sat alone in the center of the track, the engine long since shut off but still echoing in her ears. Marley stared across the faded pavement, eyes tracing the empty grandstands that once held thousands. Now, they sat hollow, like silent witnesses to a forgotten era. Her hands trembled not from fear, but recognition. Those initials, that car, this place, it all led back to one man. Uncle Alex. She hadn't heard his name spoken aloud in years. In her family, he was a shadow. A former racer, a prodigy even, who vanished from the circuit after a crash that was never fully explained. Marley had idolized him as a kid. The stories, the trophies, the grainy footage on VHS tapes they weren't supposed to watch. He'd raced here, on this very track, and now she was standing where he once stood, staring at a machine he may have built in secret. She walked the pit lane slowly, the ghosts of memory pressing in. Flashbacks came in flickers. Her uncle's voice calling her, Marla Pops, her small hand clutching a pit past too big for her neck, the way his fire suit crinkled when he knelt to tie her shoes before a race. He'd been electric, larger than life, and then he was gone. No explanation. One day he stopped calling. Her parents wouldn't say why. Just, let it go, Marley. He made his choices, but now she knew better. This wasn't abandonment. This was exile. She climbed the steps to the grandstand's first row, brushing leaves off a seat that still had the number 12 stenciled in faded paint. From here, she could see the entire circuit, every curve, every straight, every heartbeat of what once was. It wasn't just a racetrack. It was a memory map. And somehow, someone had known she'd come back to it, had left her breadcrumbs in the form of blueprints, maps, and a machine that still carried her bloodline under the hood. A noise behind her made her flinch. She turned. A man stood near the edge of the pit wall, gray beard, oil-stained ball cap, denim jacket worn at the elbows. He looked like he belonged here, like he'd never left. "You're Reyes' kid?" he asked, voice rough but steady. Marley hesitated, then nodded. "His niece." The man exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for a decade. "I figured it'd be you," he said, stepping closer. "Alex said someone come one day. Said if anyone could handle the truth, it'd be his brother's girl." Marley's chest tightened. "You knew him?" The man nodded. "Knew him? Hell, I bled with him. I was on his crew. He built that number 9 with his own hands. After the crash, when they tried to silence him, he brought it here. Said if racing didn't want him, he'd build something better. Something clean. Why didn't he tell me?" She whispered. The man looked away. "Because the truth he uncovered nearly got him killed. And because some stories need the right driver to finish them." He looked at her again. "You ready?" Marley didn't blink. "Yeah, I am." The next morning, Marley returned before sunrise. The racetrack was still wrapped in mist, the concrete cold beneath her boots as she walked the pit lane with a purpose she hadn't felt in years. She carried a notebook tucked under her arm, the map folded inside, the mysterious initials still echoing in her mind. Her uncle's car, the blue number 9, was real. His secrets were real. And now, Every locked door in this place felt like a question waiting to be answered. Bay after bay, she opened them slowly, reverently. The keys worked on most. Behind every door was another time capsule. A sleek Le Mans car wrapped in canvas, an open-wheel Indy racer scarred from contact, a dusty Daytona stalker still bearing the faded number of a legend. These weren't replicas. They were survivors. Some had championship decals still affixed. Others were stripped, abandoned mid-repair, as if the mechanics expected to return the next day and never did. By noon, Marley had counted 42 cars across 12 garages, each one unique, each one worth more than anything she'd ever owned. Together, they told a story that had been buried in silence. But it was more than just the cars, it was what was left inside them. Gloves tucked into door panels, old timers taped to dashes, photos wedged beneath visors, pieces of lives, frozen in time. As she moved from bay to bay, she kept circling back to the blue number 9. She'd left it idling in the sun that morning to warm the fluids. Now, she popped the hood and studied the engine again. Twin turbos, yes. But hand-machined parts, too. Welds that didn't look factory. There was an intimacy in the way it had been built. Not for profit, not for show. This car had been built to prove something. She was so focused she didn't hear the footsteps behind her. "You're not going to try starting that without checking the rear brakes, are you?" a voice called out. She turned, startled. It was a woman this time, late 60s maybe. Short-cropped silver hair, coveralls tied at the waist, hands stained with old grease. She carried a thermos and a familiarity that unsettled Marley in the best way. "Name's Avery," the woman said, nodding toward the car. "Used to crew for Alex. Kept this place quiet after he left, until they told me to stop." Marley narrowed her eyes. "Who's they?" Dot looked toward the racetrack, where the mist had begun to lift. "The people who didn't want this place found. Sponsors, teams, the Federation. Doesn't matter now. What matters is it's open again. That means someone's ready." "Ready for what?" Marley asked. "To finish what he started," Dot said simply. "To bring the truth back into the light. And if you're really his niece, then we've got work to do." Marley blinked. "You're staying?" Dot grinned. "Oh, honey, I've been waiting." And just like that, the garage was no longer silent. It was alive. The binder was buried beneath a stack of transmission covers in the back of Bay 12. Marley hadn't been looking for it. She was just organizing spare parts when something metallic clinked and fell from a shelf, revealing a dusty toolbox with a false bottom. Inside, the binder, leather-wrapped, zippered shut, and heavy with the weight of something important. She sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, her hands dirty, the sun falling in slats through the high windows, and unzipped it. The first page hit like a punch to the gut. Glenridge Underground Archive. Alex Reyes. Private logbook. Every page after was lined with lap times, hand-drawn diagrams, and annotated schematics. There were dated entries, race notes, mechanical tweaks, even taped-in Polaroids. Each car had its own tab, some with initials, others with full driver names, many of them famous. Names Marley had only heard shouted from highlight reels or printed on vintage posters. She flipped to one marked confidential, scrawled in red ink. Inside was a list of VINs. Beside each one, race entry dates, last known location, and a single-word label: lost, burned, buried, sold, sealed. But one stood out. Number 0009A. Project Fireline. Classified. No last race. No sale date. No status. Just a line drawn through it, in red ink. She turned the page. Tucked between the next entries was a folded photo. A younger version of her uncle, in a fire suit, standing beside the blue number 9. His arm was around someone Marley didn't recognize, a woman in a racing jacket, face smudged with grease, grinning like they'd just won something that couldn't be measured by trophies. Scrawled on the back in fading pen, she believed in truth, even when it cost her everything. Marley's stomach twisted. She stood and carried the binder into the main garage, setting it on the workbench between her and Dot. The older woman took one look and went pale. "I thought this was gone," Dot whispered, fingers grazing the edge of the cover. "What is Project Fireline?" Marley asked. Dot exhaled slowly. "It was a test. Alex built the number 9 to expose something corner. Cutting and manufacturing, faulty fuel systems, illegal tuning, things that killed people. When he brought it to light, they shut him out, buried him. And when he refused to stay quiet, they tried to erase everything, even this place. But they didn't," Marley said quietly. Dot smiled. "No, he outsmarted them, hid the cars, the proof, waited for someone to come along who'd understand what they were looking at. Looks like that's you." Marley stared down at the binder again. This wasn't just about old cars anymore. It was about the story they told, a buried history, sabotaged truths, and a man who refused to play along. She flipped back to the first page. Her uncle's handwriting ran along the top margin. "If I'm not here to finish it, let someone I trust drive it home." Marley closed the binder. "I'm driving," she said. It was nearly midnight when Marley unlocked Bay 17. The key stuck in the rusted padlock for a moment before finally giving way with a sharp metallic snap. The heavy door creaked upward, steel scraping steel, revealing pitch darkness inside. She clicked on her flashlight. The beam cut through decades of dust and still air. There, in the center of the room, covered in a gray tarp, was a shape unlike any other car she'd uncovered so far. Lower, wider, sharper edges. A silhouette that didn't belong to any production model or known race series. Dot stood behind her, silent, arms crossed tight across her chest. "You sure you want to see this one tonight?" she asked. "I have to," Marley replied. They stepped inside. Marley grabbed the edge of the tarp and pulled. The dust erupted in a soft cloud, coating the beam of her flashlight, and underneath it sat a car that didn't just whisper legacy, it roared it. Matte black paint. No logos, no number. Just a single crimson stripe running from hood to rear diffuser. The body was carbon fiber hand-laid, unpainted in places. The tires were slicks, flat and cracked with age, but still held air. There were no mirrors, no nameplates, no identifying marks at all. "This isn't in the binder," Marley said. Dot nodded. "Because it's not supposed to exist." She walked around the rear of the car, her hand ghosting over the spoiler's edge. "Alex called it the Phoenix, a prototype built in secret, long after they thought he'd walked away. He didn't build it to race. He built it to prove something, that the truth had speed, and it couldn't be outrun forever." Marley opened the driver's door. The hinges hissed. Inside was a stripped cockpit, a single bucket seat, 5-point harness, and a minimalist dash. No luxuries, just a glowing red ignition button and a sticker across the console that read, "One shot, make it count." She found a flash drive taped to the inside of the glove box. No label, just a red wax seal, stamped with the same initials, A.R. Her heart pounded. "What happened to it?" she asked. Dot's voice dropped. "He built it for a public demonstration. Was going to run it during a charity event, full-speed lap, fully exposed, proving everything they'd buried. But someone cut the brakes the night before. He caught it in time, barely. After that, he locked it away." "Why didn't he tell anyone?" Marley asked. "He tried. No one listened. Or worse, they listened, and made sure no one else would." Marley stared at the car, the phantom prototype, the physical proof of every whispered rumor. "It runs," Dot said. "He made sure of that, but it hasn't been started in years." Marley looked over the curves of the Phoenix, sleek, dangerous, revolutionary. Built for truth, built for redemption. "Then it's time we wake it up," she said, "because legends don't stay buried forever." They brought the Phoenix to life on the third try. Marley sat in the cockpit, hand trembling as she pressed the ignition button. For a moment, there was nothing, just silence, deep and electric. Then the engine spun, caught, and exploded into a low growl that reverberated through the garage like a beast waking up. Not a shriek, not a roar, a warning. The dashboard lit up red, and for a second, she felt like she was sitting inside a pulse. Dot stood off to the side, arms crossed, eyes wide. "That sound," she murmured. "That's not stock." "Nothing about this is stock," Marley said. The Phoenix shook slightly, restrained by wheel chocks. Even at idle, it radiated a kind of untamed energy. Marley could feel it in her chest, in her spine. The engine was angry, but alive. She gave it the slightest nudge on the throttle. The revs spiked like a heartbeat after bad news. She cut the engine. It didn't sputter. It stopped, clean and sudden, like a statement. They spent the next 2 days, checking every system. Dot pulled in an old contact from Alex's racing days, a wiry former engineer named Vince, who showed up with a bag of tools and a cautious respect. Together, they went through the Phoenix bolt by bolt, suspension racing grade custom, unlike anything seen on a production grid. Brakes upgraded and flawless, clearly rebuilt after the tampering. Transmission sequential, with handmade internals. Every inch of the car was purpose-built, not for endurance, not for marketing, for one thing only: proof. By the end of the second night, Marley sat on a folding chair, grease-streaked and exhausted, staring at the Phoenix in the moonlight, filtering through the open garage door. "I think I have to drive it," she said. Dot and Vince looked at each other. "I was hoping you'd say that," Dot replied. They picked a date. 3 days out. Just enough time to prep the track and pray the weather held. Not a race, not a media stunt, just a lap 1 full run of the Glenridge circuit. No cameras, no crowd, just the car, the truth, and the girl who refused to stay quiet. The night before the run, Marley found another envelope, taped to the inside of Bay 17's breaker box. It was sealed in red wax and addressed, again, to her. Inside was a letter from Alex, written in thick, confident script. "Marley, if you're reading this, you've found the Phoenix. And I hope you're about to do what I never could. You don't have to be the fastest. Just be fast enough to matter. And if she makes it across the line, it means the truth survived. I'll be with you every second. Uncle Alex." She folded the letter, placed it in her jacket pocket, and looked at the car one more time. Tomorrow, the silence would end, and the track would remember. The sun was just cresting over the bleachers when Marley pulled the Phoenix to the starting line. The track was still. No roar of crowds, no announcer's voice echoing through the speakers. Just wind in the grandstands and the metallic creak of banners flapping in the distance. Dot stood near the pit wall, headset in place. Vince held a tablet, monitoring vitals. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. This wasn't a race. This was a reckoning. Marley adjusted the 5-point harness, felt the straps tighten over her chest. Her uncle's letter was folded neatly in her jacket pocket. She could feel its presence, like a heartbeat pressed against her ribs. She placed her hand on the ignition button and took a long, steadying breath. When the Phoenix came to life, it did so with a growl that felt older than the machine itself, like something awakening that had been waiting for far too long. Dot's voice crackled in her earpiece. "All systems green, we're with you." Marley rolled forward, tires whispering across worn asphalt. She followed the inside line toward turn 1, letting the car guide her pace. The handling was tight, surgical. The engine responded like a question already answered. This car didn't need to be told what to do. It had always known. She passed turn 2, then 3. By turn 5, she started to push. The Phoenix surged forward, smooth as silk but wild underneath. Like it wanted to fly but still remembered how it once almost died. Marley gripped the wheel tighter, leaned into the apex, and came out clean, the rear end kissing the edge of the track but never losing control. On the straightaway, she opened it up. The engine screamed, but not in fear and relief, as if it had been silenced too long and was finally allowed to sing again. The wind tore past her, her eyes locked on the final bend. It wasn't speed that mattered now. It was presence, purpose. That's when she saw him. At the edge of the pit wall, just beyond Dot and Vince, stood a man in a leather jacket, helmet under one arm, silver hair, straight posture. Uncle Alex. Or maybe it was just a shadow of him. A memory. But it was enough. Marley came through the final corner, like a ribbon being pulled tight, and crossed the finish line with the engine peaking and the sun behind her. As she coasted to a stop, tears slid silently down her cheeks. Not from fear, not from relief, from something older, something deeper. Vindication. She pulled the Phoenix into pit lane. The moment the engine cut, the air felt different, charged, whole. Vince helped her out of the car. Dot wrapped her in a hug without a word. But someone else was waiting behind them. A man in a press badge, DSLR slung over his shoulder. He held something in his hand. "I think this belongs to you," he said, offering a helmet. Her uncle's helmet, and tucked inside another letter. The letter was short. No drama, no confession. Just gratitude, scribbled in Alex's unmistakable hand. "You made it further than I did, kid. Not by outrunning them, but by outlasting them. The truth always crosses the line. Keep driving, keep building. This place is yours now." Marley sat in the pit lane long after the others had gone home, the letter resting in her lap. The Phoenix parked beside her like a loyal dog finally allowed to run free. The silence around the track wasn't heavy anymore. It was peaceful, like the ghosts had finally stopped pacing. The next week passed in a blur. Word spread, though Marley hadn't called anyone. Somehow, stories like this didn't need advertising. Mechanics from across the state arrived, asking how they could help. Former racers dropped off old gear, tires, decals, things they said belonged where the history lives. Volunteers offered to clean the stands, repaint the lanes, rebuild the timing tower. Dot took over the front office. Vince ran diagnostics like he'd never retired, and Marley, without ever intending to, found herself at the center of a movement. Not a race team, not a restoration shop, something else. A resurrection. She turned the old media booth into a museum of sorts, hung Alex's racing suit behind glass, displayed the binder with his original lap logs, parked the Phoenix on a raised platform in Bay, 9 beneath a spotlight that clicked on at dusk. It wasn't a trophy, it was a torch, passed from one driver to another. Kids started showing up too, curious at first, then inspired. A few asked how to change a tire. One brought in his busted dirt bike. Marley let them help, let them watch, let them belong. Because this place had once been about speed. Now, it was about story, and she wasn't done. She reached out to the families of the drivers listed in the binder, those whose cars had been buried, erased. One by one, they came to visit. Some wept when they saw the cars. Others smiled, like they'd found something they hadn't even realized was missing. Closure, connection, truth. The racetrack didn't reopen with fanfare or press conferences. No ribbon cutting, no drone footage. It came back to life the same way Marley had rebuilt the Phoenix bolt by bolt. Quietly, with hands that cared. By fall, Glenridge Raceway had become a living monument. Not a competition ground. A sanctuary for machines with soul. And Marley? She never stopped turning wrenches. She didn't chase fame. She didn't sell the cars. She just kept showing up every morning before sunrise, walking the track with coffee in hand, listening to the wind move through the grandstands like it was saying thank you. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just fixing something broken. She had built something beautiful, not just with tools, but with trust. And when she fired up the Phoenix late one night, just to feel the engine rumble beneath her again, she whispered into the empty cockpit, "We're still driving.